Don Williams again for the Institute of Sports and Spines. Today we're doing a demonstration of a PWC 150 test. PWC 150 and PWC 170 tests are essentially quantitative tests or tests to analyse what your specific power output is at a specific heart rate, i.e. 150 or 170 beats per minute. They're really an assessment test that allows you to gauge your progress over a period of time and don't really give you too much usable data other than that. So we'll show you the setup of the test and then we'll demonstrate how the test is performed. To do our PWC test we use a Monarch LC7 test bike. It's one of the most advanced test bikes in the world and it controls and runs all the parameters of the test so that we get an accurate and reliable and valid test result. We simply input the variables of the person. We can choose the cadence or speed RPM. We can choose whether you have a cool down period. We can put their weight, heart rate and seat height in so that we can reproduce this test accurately on further or future occurrences. There's a whole bunch of questions that we want to know any risk factors for people. If there's any risk factors, then we want to know that someone has had an all clear from their GP or cardiologist before doing the test. So for a healthy individual like myself, then we would answer no to all these tests and the test is ready to start. We can then choose whether we're going to do a PWC 130, 150 or 170 test, and obviously when we do future tests we want to replicate the same condition. So if it's a PWC 150 then we want to do a 150 in the future. We can choose how large the wattage increments are or how much the workload increases per interval, and we can also choose to start workload. So we'd normally start on a fairly low test so we get a good gradient of curve, so we get a good build up over a period of time. You do need to be careful if you start the test too low for a well-trained athlete. It will be basically a very long test and quite a boring test for them. We hit OK, brings our chart up, it's ready to go. We can see the PWC 150 line. We hit start and we're ready to go. So we can see my start heart rate is 83 beats per minute and the workload in watts is 100, and yet I haven't started the test so we don't get a speed yet. So we're in the early phases of the PWC 150 test or the PWC 170 test. It's all the same in the early parts of the test. It's not difficult and it's basically just a walk in the park. This test is a longer test and the time limit will depend on the capacity and the fitness of the person and power they can generate. So at the moment I'll continue on having a really easy workload for quite a period of time. When you're watching the video it doesn't really appear to have been much change, but the computer has increased the workload. So we're now just at 175 watts. Still not hard, so outwardly appears easy, but it is slowly getting harder. Starting to work a bit harder now. We're at a workload of 225 watts. Still not really feeling it too much, but I do start to feel the pressure on the legs. The biggest thing about this test as you go through is that the intramuscular endurance tends to play as big a role, if not more of a role, than your cardiovascular endurance. Really starting to feel it now. Been going for over 15 minutes. Pressure's really coming on at 350 watts. Starting to feel a fair bit of pressure through the legs. You might not see it from the distance, but I'm really starting to heat up. A lot of sweat starting to come off me. When we complete the test, we'll end up with an analysis chart. We did a PWC 150 today. We get the general information from me within the chart, just as a test guinea pig. When we analyse it, we see the curve that shows the average heart rate as we progress through the test. We get a test graph that shows you the incremental change in the power, which is the blue line, which increases by essentially 25 watts per 2-minute period. The green line represents the cadence or the RPM, which is static at 70 RPM, and the red line shows the heart rate, which essentially is a fairly linear gradient. It tends to lift a little bit as soon as the workload goes up. There's a slight lag obviously, and then it tends to slow down its rate of increase. And then at the end, we can analyse that, which gives us the PWC wattage rate. For me is 225 watts at 150 beats per minute for my heart rate. So the PWC 150 for my weight is 2.81 watts per kilogram. Now this isn't something we rate or rank people in specifically, but it tells us where they're at for their training at that time, and then as they increase or improve in their training, we should see this value increase over the time frame. That concludes our demonstration of a PWC 150 or PWC 170 test.